The demographics of Russia is about the demographic features of the population of the Russian Federation, including population growth, population density, ethnic composition, education level, health, economic status and other aspects. According to an official estimate for January 1, 2016, the population of Russia is 144,221,341 without Crimea, or 146,600,000 with, as of 2014, Russian TFR of 1.750 children per woman was the highest in Eastern, Southern and Central Europe. In 2013, Russia experienced the first natural population growth since 1990 at 22,700 people. Taking into account immigration, the population grew by 294,500 people. According to the 2010 census, ethnic Russian people make up 81% of the total population. This share remained steady over the last few decades. 6 other ethnicities have a population exceeding 1 million: Tatars, Ukrainians, Bashkir, Chuvash, Chechens and Armenians. In total, 160 different ethnic groups live within the Russian Federation's borders. Russia's population density is 8.4 people per square kilometer, making it one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world. The population is most dense in the European part of the country, with milder climate, centering on Moscow and St. Petersburg. 74% of the population is urban, making Russia a highly urbanized country. Russia is the only country in the world where more people are moving from cities to rural areas, with a urbanization rate of 0.2% in 2011, and it has been urbanizing since the mid-2000s. Main trends. The population of Russia peaked at 148,689,000 in 1991, just before the breakup of the Soviet Union. Low birth rates and abnormally high death rates caused Russia's population to decline at a 0.5% annual rate, or about 750,000 to 800,000 people per year from the mid-1990s to the mid-2000s. The UN warned in 2005 that Russia's then population of about 143 million could fall by a third by 2050, if trends did not improve. The decline slowed considerably in the late 2000s, and in 2009 Russia recorded population growth for the first time in 15 years, adding 23,300 people. Key reasons for the slow current population growth are improving healthcare, changing fertility patterns among younger women, falling emigration and steady influx of immigrants from ex-USSR countries. In 2012, Russia's population increased by 292,400 people. The number of Russians living in poverty has decreased by 50% since the economic crisis following the disintegration of the Soviet Union, and the improving economy had a positive impact on the country's low birth rate. The latter rose from its lowest point of 8.27 births per 1,000 people in 1999 to 13.3 per 1,000 in 2014. Likewise, the fertility rate rose from its lowest point of 1.157 in 1999 to 1.750 in 2014. 2007 marked the highest growth in birth rates that the country had seen in 25 years, and 2009 marked the highest total birth rate since 1991. While the Russian birth rate is comparable to that of developed countries, its death rate is much higher, especially among working-age males due to a comparatively high rate of fatalities caused by heart disease and other external causes such as accidents. The Russian death rate in 2010 was 14.3 per 1,000 citizens. Current trends as of the mid-2010s include growing birth rates, lower death rates and increasing migration from Ukraine. demographic crisis and recovery prospects. The causes for this sharp increase in mortality are widely debated. According to a 2009 report by The Lancet, a British medical journal, mass privatisation, an element of the economic reform package nicknamed shock therapy, clearly correlates with higher mortality rates. The report argues that advocates of economic reforms ignored the human cost of the policies they were promoting, such as unemployment and human suffering, leading to an early death. These conclusions were criticized by The Economist. A WHO press release in 2000, on the other hand, reported widespread alcohol abuse in Russia being used as the most common explanation of higher men's mortality. A 2009 study blamed alcohol for more than half the deaths among Russians aged 15 to 54 in the 90s. For the same demographic, this compares to 4% of deaths for the rest of the world. The study claimed alcohol consumption in mid-90s in Russia averaged 10.5 liters, and was based on personal interviews conducted in 3 Siberian industrial cities, Barnaul, Bielsk and Omsk. According to the Russian demographic publication Demisko, the rising male death rate was a long-term trend from 1960 to 2005. The only significant reversion of the trend was caused by Mikhail Gorbachev's anti-alcohol campaign, but its effect was only temporary. According to the publication, the sharp rise of death rates in the early 1990s was caused by the exhaustion of the effect of the anti-alcohol campaign, while the market reforms were only of secondary importance. The authors also claimed the Lancet's study is flawed because it used the 1985 death rate as the base, while that was in fact the very maximum of the effect of the anti-alcohol campaign. Other factors contributing to the collapse, along with the economic problems, include the dying off of a relatively large cohort of people born between 1925 and 1940, when Russian birth rates were very high, along with, ironically enough, an echo boom in the 1980s that may have satisfied the demand of women for children, leading to a subsequent drop in birth rates. Government measures to halt the demographic crisis was a key subject of Vladimir Putin's 2006 State of the Nation address. As a result, a national program was developed with the goal to reverse the trend by 2020. Soon after, a study published in 2007 showed that the rate of population decrease had begun to slow. If the net decrease from January to August 2006 was 408,200 people, it was 196,600 in the same period in 2007. The death rate accounted for 357,000 of these, which is 137,000 less than in 2006. At the same time period in 2007, there were just over 1 million births in Russia, whilst deaths decreased from 1,475,000 to 1,402,300. In all, the number of deaths exceeded the number of births by 1.3 times, down from 1.5 in 2006. 18 of the 83 provinces showed a natural growth of population. The Russian Ministry of Economic Development expressed hope that by 2020 the population would stabilize at 138 to 139 million, and by 2025, to increase again to its present-day status of 143 to 145, also raising the life expectancy to 75 years. The natural population decline continued to slow through 2008 to 2012 due to declining death rates and increasing birth rates. In 2009, the population saw yearly growth for the first time in 15 years. In September 2009, the Ministry of Health and Social Development reported that Russia recorded natural population growth for the first time in 15 years, with 1,000 more births than deaths in August. In April 2011, the Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin pledged to spend the 1.5 trillion rubles on various measures to boost Russia's declining birth rate by 30% in the next 4 years. In 2012, the birth rate increased again. Russia recorded 1,896,263 births, the highest number since 1990, and even exceeding annual births during the period 1967 to 1969, with a TFR of 1.691, the highest since 1991. In fact, Russia, despite having only slightly more people than Japan, has recently had nearly twice as many births as that country. The number of births is expected to fall over the next few years as women born during the baby bust in the 1990s enter their prime childbearing years. But this would not have an effect on the TFR. The figures for 2013 and 2014 again showed around 1.9 million births, about the same as in 2012. But because the number of women of childbearing age is dropping, especially for those in their early 20s, the TFR actually rose to 1.75. Preliminary figures for 2015 show only slightly less a number of births comparing to 2014, despite progressively faster worsening of the age structure resulting to faster decrease of the number of reproductive age women. Hence, the TFR actually rose again in 2015. Immigration. In 2006, in a bid to compensate for the country's demographic decline, the Russian government started simplifying immigration laws and launched a state program for providing assistance to voluntary immigration of ethnic Russians from former Soviet republics. In August 2012, as the country saw its first demographic growth since the 1990s, President Putin declared that Russia's population could reach 146 million by 2025, mainly as a result of immigration. Introduced in April 2014 new citizenship rules allowing citizens of former Soviet countries to obtain Russian citizenship if they meet certain criteria have gained strong interest among Russian-speaking residents of those countries. Contrary to the opinion of the media, Central Asia is only a tiny source of immigrants out of 100,000 ethnic Uzbeks who arrived in Russia for work. Only 489 settled in Russia permanently. 50,000 ethnic Russians from Uzbekistan arrived in the Russian Federation to settle. The largest amount were ethnic Ukrainians, 700,000 people by a far majority. However, they came because of the Ukraine crisis. 1.4 million ethnic Russians repatriated to the homeland in 2014, more than in previous years. There are an estimated 4 million illegal immigrants from the ex-Soviet states in Russia. In 2012, the Russian Federal Security Service's border service stated there had been an increase in illegal migration from the Middle East and Southeast Asia under legal changes made in 2012. Illegal immigrants who are caught will be banned from re-entering the country for 10 years. In recent years, most immigrants have come from Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, Ukraine, Moldova, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. This has resulted in ethnic tension. Every year, 300,000 immigrants arrive in Russia, of which over three-quarters are ethnic Russians. In the 1990s, immigration was the main reason Russia did not suffer substantial population decline. It reached a peak of 1,200,000 in 1994, mostly ethnic Russians from ex-Soviet states fleeing for social, economic and political reasons such as the civil war in Tajikistan from 1992 to 1997. In 2014, immigration rose to 2.2 million, 89% of whom were fleeing the conflict in neighboring Ukraine. So far in 2015, immigration has reached 3 million from the same source. With the accession of Armenia to the Eurasian Union, immigration from Armenia increased by 20%. Worker migration. Temporary worker migrants in Russia consist of about 7 million people. Most of the temporary workers come from Central Asia, the Balkans and East Asia. Most of them work in the construction, cleaning and in the household industries. They primarily live in cities such as Moscow, Sochi and Blagoveshchensk. While worker migrants are opposed by most Russians, the mayor of Moscow said that Moscow cannot deal without worker migrants. New laws are in place that require worker migrants to be fluent in Russian, know Russian history and laws. The Russian opposition and most of the Russian population opposes worker migration. Alexei Navalny stated that if he came to power he would introduce a visa regime to non-Eurasian Union countries in the former Soviet Union and have a visa-free regime with the European Union and the West to attract skilled migrants. The problem of worker migration has become so severe it has caused a rise in Russian nationalism, and spawned groups like Movement Against Illegal Immigration. Ukrainian exodus to Russia in 2013. Around 300,000 Ukrainian-born people settled in Russia legally. 1 in 4 were undocumented. In 2014 that number tripled, plus around 1 million refugees, who were settled in Yakutia and other parts of Siberia. So far since the start of the maiden 3 million Ukrainians settled in Russia legally, with 1 in 2 being undocumented. Most of the Ukrainian arrivals worked on farms or, in the case of refugees, settled in newly built villages. Because of this, the rural population in Russia increased by 4 million, giving agriculture a boost. Areas with high populations of Ukrainian worker migrants, such as rural areas in central Russia, the northern part of the country, and towns with high populations on Ukrainian worker migrants were swollen in people, due to the fact that the worker migrants from the previous 2 years had decided to stay in Russia due to the crisis at home. The majority of recent arrivals are female compared to previous years when most were men, and overwhelmingly in the 16 to 25 age group. Emigration in recent years. Russia's official statistics service, Rosstat, states that 186,382 Russians left the country in 2013 and 122,751 in 2012. These numbers represent a significant increase over the 36,774 that left in 2011 and the 33,578 in 2010. Although this change had been almost entirely caused by changing counting methodology, which caused corresponding rise of registered immigration, so the saldo finally remained roughly the same as before changes. In 2014, there was a small slowdown in emigration. 171,872 Russian citizens left the country, mostly to Germany and Israel. These were mostly ethnic Germans and Jews, but additionally about a third of emigrants were LGBT people leaving due to rising homophobia. Future migration. Due to the fact that most migration is from Ukraine, which is a country where 1/3 people born will immigrate to Russia, the country will definitely reach a point where there is not enough people, which is closer due to the exodus of young women to Russia. Future permanent migration is expected to come from Eurasian Union member states. Armenia in particular, which is supposed to replace Ukraine and was the fastest growing origin country in percentage between 2012 and 2013. Other countries recognized are Georgia and Belarus, while for the North Caucasus Federal District immigration will continue to originate from Azerbaijan and South Ossetia due to high birth rates. There will be no difference in temporary migration. There will be no difference in emigration demographics. Population statistics. Population density 8.4 people per square kilometer. Population distribution 74% urban, 26% rural. Population growth rate 0.19%. Median age total 39.6 years. Male 36.7 years. Female 41.6 years. Sex ratio at birth 1.06. Male, female under 15 years 1.05. Male, female 15 to 64 years 0.92. Male, female 65 years and over 0.46. Male, female. Total population 0.86. Male, female. Natural increase. Current experts were puzzled with a sharp increase in deaths coincided with a sharp increase in life expectancy, while they have found out that a decrease in potential mothers led to a decrease in births and a rapid rise in fertility. The number of births during May 2016 decreased by 7,407 relative to May 2015, and for the period January to May 2016 births decreased by 1,493 compared to the period January to May 2015. Number of births during May 2015 equals 149,182. Number of births during May 2016 equals 156,589. The birth rate for January to May 2016 was 12.5 births per 1,000 population versus 12.6 during the same period in 2015. Number of births from January to May 2015 equals 761,012. Number of births from January to May 2016 equals 762,505. The number of deaths during May 2016 increased by 5,589, but for the period January to May 2016 total deaths decreased by 22,768 compared to the previous year. Number of deaths during May 2015 equals 154,855. Number of deaths during May 2016 equals 160,444. The death rate for January to May 2016 was 13.2 per 1,000 population, versus 13.7 during the same period in 2015. Number of deaths from January to May 2015 equals 826,830. Number of deaths from January to May 2016 equals 804,062. Total natural increase during January to May has decreased to -0.7 per thousand in 2016 and increase to -1.1 per thousand in 2015. Natural increase in May 2015 equals -5,673. Natural increase in May 2016 equals -3,855. Natural increase between January to May 2015 equals -65,818. Natural increase between January to May 2016 equals -41,557. Natural increase 2015 net migration rate 2.24 migrant, 1,000 population. Vital statistics. Before World War II, no exact vital statistics for Russia are available for the period before World War II. Andrew made the following estimates. After World War II, all values in year 2015 are estimated. Note: Russian data includes Crimea starting in 2014. Total fertility rates as of 2014. Russian TFR of 1.750 children per woman is among the highest in Eastern Europe, which means an average Russian family has more children than an average family in any other Eastern European country. Still, this rate is far below the replacement rate of 2.1 to 2.14. In 1990, just prior to the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Russia's total fertility rate stood at 1.89. Fertility rates had already begun to decline in the late 80s due to the natural progression of Russia's demographic structure, but the rapid and widely negative changes in society following the collapse greatly influenced the rate of decline. The TFR hit a historic low of 1.157 in 1999 and has since begun to rise again, reaching 1.750 in 2014. The only federal subject of Russia to see a decline in fertility since 1999 is Ingushetia, where the TFR has fallen from 2.443 to 2.278 as of 2014. In 2009, 8 of Russia's federal subjects had a TFR above 2.1 children per woman. These federal subjects are Chechnya, Tuva, Ost-Orda Buryat Okrug, again Buryat Okrug, Komi Permyak, Evenk Okrug, Altai Republic, Nenets Autonomous Okrug. Of these federal subjects, 4 have an ethnic Russian majority. In 2011, the highest TFR were recorded in Chechnya, Tuva, Ingushetia, Altai Republic, Sakha Republic, Buryatia, and Nenets Autonomous Okrug. Until 2010, the Russian Republic of Chechnya was the region with the highest birth rate in the former USSR. However, in 2011, the Armenian province of Kamchatka overtook it. In 2010, the average number of children born to women has decreased from 1513 to 1,000 women from 2002 to 1469 in 2010. In urban areas the figure was 1328 children, and in the village 1876. In recent years the percentage of children per woman 16 years or more were year 1 child, 30.5% to 31.2%, 2 children, 33.7% to 34.4%, 3 children, 8.9% to 8.7%, 4 or more children, 5.2% to 4.2%, no children, 21.7% to 21.5%. Note that despite a decrease in women who have not had children, the number of 3-child and large families has declined between 2002 and 2010. In every region in Russia, rural areas reported higher TFR compared to urban areas. In most of the federal subjects in Siberia and the Russian Far East, the total fertility rates were high, but not high enough to ensure population replacement. For example, Zabaykalsky Krai had a TFR of 1.82, which is higher than the national average, but less than the 2.1 needed for population replacement. Compared to the G7 countries, in 2014, Russian TFR of 1.75 children, woman was lower than that of France, the USA, the UK. Yet its TFR is higher than in other G7 countries like Canada, Germany, Japan and Italy. Compared to other most populous nations, Russia has a lower TFR than Nigeria, Pakistan, India, Mexico, Indonesia, the USA, and higher TFR than Brazil and China. Compared to its neighbors, in 2011 Russia has a lower TFR than Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Azerbaijan, Norway, North Korea, Finland, while Russian TFR is higher than in Estonia, Lithuania, Belarus, Georgia, Ukraine, Poland and Latvia. Also many other European countries like Czech Republic, Spain, Greece, Hungary, Switzerland, Portugal, Albania, as well as East Asian countries and territories like South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Macau have a lower TFR than Russia.